You are listening to GMR Radio. And now, the Great Movie Radio Show.
All right, everyone, quiet on the set. Places. We've got a show to make here. Is Chris ready? Yes. Okay, everyone, in 3, 2, 1, and... Coming to you live from sunny Orlando, Florida, it's the Great Movie Radio Show, a movie talk podcast starring Chris Schneider.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Great Movie Radio Show. This is Chris Schneider coming to you from Orlando, Florida. Coming to talk to you about movies with my friend who I got a chance to work with at the Great Movie Ride during his college program, and has returned to the Florida domain for the foreseeable future. Welcome to the show, Jesse Techentin.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, man. It's been a while since we've seen each other than talking about the show, and I think you stopped by recently to hang out, and we were just chatting about things, so it's good to have you on. Before that, though, I haven't seen you. It had been a few years since you worked the movie ride for your college program.
I was going to say I did movie ride 2013 through 2014, and I want to say you were still there when I left in 2014.
I was.
Okay. And then I was going to say between that... I remember seeing you the day that it closed in 2017, and then I think that before, like, literally the last few weeks, that was the last time
that
I
was
had
it.
seen
Yeah.
you.
So a lot of the riders, the last time I've seen was the last day, and I wrote it so many times.
Oh, everyone was there.
Yeah, Juan Carlos, who was here last episode, and you happened to be here a little bit before. We had a little round table. That was fun. We haven't got to do that yet, so that was fun. Last time I seen him was probably the last day. I might have ran into him like at Disney at some point, but other than that, most of you I've only seen like the last day, and I feel bad because it's like, I need to see you guys more. I miss you.
Well, I was going to say, I feel like everyone who works here in Florida, especially if they're working at Disney or Universal, has that Disney or Universal schedule that can be anything, so...
We're all over the place.
Yeah.
But it's nice, and that's what I've been enjoying about doing the show, is I'm getting to revisit with you guys and catch up and talk about things that we talked about while working at the ride, and like I said, celebrating the ride, and we get to have a good time. And it's been such a fun journey. I can't believe I don't even know how many episodes we're in now by the time we're recording this, but it's like we're like 8 or 9 episodes in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was not expecting it to take off like it has. So this has been a really great opportunity and a nice chance for me to catch up with you all. And kind of have one-on-ones or one-on-two, like I said, the round table that was not in the cards originally. To talk to you guys about working on and having fun with, and times that we would sit down and be like, remember this part of the ride, I would do something different here, and put our version in, and it's so much fun. It's been very intriguing to hear all the different versions of the scenes, and I think my favorite so far has been Juan Carlos said that we should dress up as Michael Myers. Or the idea came up as playing Michael Myers.
For the old Anubis scene.
I was like, yes, please.
I was going to say, as a person who actually hasn't seen Halloween,
you haven't?
I still think that would be amazing.
That would be great.
To do that.
Yeah, I the idea of leaning out of the whatever, I guess, closet that would be there, instead of the Anubis chamber, it would be just a closet in the bedroom, and then just kind of leaning out of it and just halfway being seen and scaring the crap out of people before taking the Bandit or Gangster and then taking all the mask and the cloak off and be like, surprise, it's me, and they would be like, you killed that guy, and now you're taking it. Just, I don't know, it's very cynical to me. It's pretty funny. We're going to visit your favorite films before getting on the track, because I always love talking favorite movies with my guests. It's really fun to hear what's inspired them throughout the year. So your first one is one I have seen. It's been a long time, probably high school for me, so about 15 years. Spirited Away.
Yes.
Studio Ghibli film. Everyone holds it in such high regard, but it deserves every bit of it because it's such a beautiful film, and everything that Ghibli has done and Miyazaki has been phenomenal. The artistic value, the story, the essence that captures you and brings you into this fantasy realm. They are such wonderful stories, and I've enjoyed every single one I've seen of theirs. Probably haven't seen them all, but I've tried to catch them when I can.
20,
there's a lot
in the
of
teens
them.
or in the 20s.
Yeah. But what about Spirited Away makes it your favorite?
I think that it's my favorite just because it's got the perfect blend between it being a fantastical adventure and a coming-of-age story for a kid, which I saw this, I think, when I was 10 or 12, around the age that Chihiro is in the film. But it's this perfect blend of both an unknown fantasy world and the adventures that could come from that as a young child, as well as being so innately human, and the details that Miyazaki puts into it that just make, apart from the environment and everything, you 100% believe in the characters and relate to them on levels that you don't even consciously realize sometimes, because there are just so many little nuanced details of even just things like how they carry themselves or words and phrases that they say. He just captures so unbelievably well. And then getting into the fantasy world of the bathhouse for the spirits, which is the main arena where Spirited Away takes place, is just such an incredible world. And so much of the lore and stuff is both related to Japanese culture, but also comes from moments in Miyazaki's life as well. And and I think that it's him putting that inspiration.
It's a personal touch.
The personal touches in his films are what makes them come across and make them become so endearing and timeless to his audience, and have let him touch so many people with it.
They're wonderful films, and I also love, because I was just looking it up. Came out in 2001, Spirited Away. I love that it's 2 hours, which you think sounds fine. Animated movies, especially nowadays, hit about an hour and a half on average.
Well, and I was going to say Spirited Away is this way, and pretty much all the Studio Ghibli films are. At this age, this was 2001, so you did have things like Monsters, Inc. and Toy Story and stuff had come out. This was still all hand-drawn and hand-cell animation. There was a couple of little areas where they did CGI, but it's also just the mastery of doing everything still by hand with pencil and with ink is...
And so for you to hand-draw a film and it run the run time that it does for 2 hours... That is incredible. Yeah. Because, I mean, if you sat at a computer and made an animated feature and put it out at an hour and a half, I mean, that's the average nowadays. We're used to it. The attention span of a child, sure. But these movies are a little bit, I don't want to say mature, but they hold, they're not your basic average children's kids movies.
No, absolutely.
There's a lot more to them. And they do have that aspect to them, but there's a lot more... thought put into them.
Yes.
I feel. And for it to run that long and to have so much detail put into it the way it is, it is... And a lot of the Ghibli films are like that. They have the long run time, their hand... It's so...
but also a lot of the Studio Ghibli films are... some of them are specifically meant for children. Things like My Neighbor Totoro, which we may talk about later on the list, is... very much meant for children. It can be appreciated by any age, but it is specifically tailored for that. Spirited Away falls in the genre between... I mean, it's truly aimed at the kids who are in the 10 to 12 range, who are reaching that independence and are starting to kind of explore and come into their own person instead of just doing everything that their parents say or whatever.
It holds, I think, a higher regard to itself more than some of these animated films are. And a lot of them have a lot of spirit and passion to them, but I do feel that sometimes some of these animated features are just made to make a buck, whereas some of them like the Ghibli films, you know, I hold other movies into the same esteem as them. I feel that they have so much depth to them that I don't even consider them animated features. I mean, they are, but I consider them so much more.
No, well, and absolutely. And I remember before I moved out here, with my family, like my siblings and I loved these films growing up, and my parents hadn't seen them at all. So for a while, we were kind of slowly introducing them and doing like family movie nights. And there were multiple times while watching them that either during, if we had to pause it or whatever for a bathroom break, my mom or my dad would be like, oh, I forgot I was watching an animated movie. Like, I just thought that I was watching a movie, basically, even though very clearly stylistically
it's cartoon,
is.
Yeah.
But you believe in it, and there's enough substance to them and enough nuance and everything that you forget. You're just transported immediately by both the visuals and the content.
I agree with you so much. And I can say the same for the next film on your list, which... you already know I'm about to go crazy about, but you put
too.
The Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
You specifically said Fellowship of the Ring.
Yes.
I'm sure you love all of them.
I do. And I basically love all of them equally. Fellowship to me is just maybe a hair in front.
I was telling Juan Carlos I actually consider them to be one film.
And I absolutely respect that.
Because of the way they were filmed simultaneously. Mm-hmm. But the Fellowship of the Ring was... I love it as much as I do. It's probably not my favorite of the trilogy, but I appreciate it as much as I do because it set the tone for the other two so well as far as the cinematic background. Because, I mean, the books... You have the books that you're relying on, first of all, but then you're adapting these masterpieces of fantasy storytelling that have been out for decades upon decades. And Tolkien was one of those things that if you mess up his work, you got a lot of angry book fans that are coming after you.
Yes.
So you can't really do that. And unfortunately, when The Hobbit came out, that kind of happened. But at the time, Peter Jackson was given full control of this, and he showed everybody that he could make the unmakeable, because everyone thought Lord of the Rings was unmakeable.
Yes.
And the fact that they are not only makeable, but he made them such masterpieces individually.
And I was going to say Return of the King won Best Picture.
That's quite a crown.
Yeah.
But all three of them are just so good. What about Fellowship sticks out to you? What's that hair between the others, I guess?
So to me, the hair is that you still have, to me, some of the most exciting action portions of the entire trilogy. I mean, it's hard to say that Helm's Deep and that eventually the Battles of Gondor for the entirety of Middle-earth are not exciting, but things like the Balrog encounter, things like the tension and everything that you get from running away from the Black Riders, both when it's just one and then up to you have the full 9 chasing Arwen and Frodo.
It gets intense when they come out of the trees, though, because you have like 2 or 3 after them, and then all of a sudden all of them are there, and you're like, oh, okay.
So to me, that still has some of the best action moments.
Yeah.
But then you also get to see some of the nicer and the gentler sides of Lord of the Rings, and I absolutely love Hobbiton and the whole series of that. And growing up, The Hobbit was my favorite book, and it was literally just the first chapter of that and kind of getting to see what hobbits are as creatures and everything. Peter Jackson so perfectly captured that in the film. And I also think that just Fellowship, it gives you the perfect amount of it's truly still character driven over story driven in some cases, and you immediately, I mean, given the film is 3 hours and 3 hours and 45 minutes, if you're actually watching the proper version, the extended, you immediately get, and you have such a big foundation of the character development, the character relationships, and it lays such perfect groundwork that it makes the next 2 films as exciting and as good as they are. And to me, if you don't have that proper launch platform, it can cheapen out everything else. But
and it is the only film and book that has the Fellowship together.
Yes.
So you have all 9 plus, other characters. I agree with you that it spent a lot of time building up the characters. What I appreciate about how much time they spent in the Shire with Frodo and Sam and all of them before taking the journey is I felt like they wanted to display the innocence of hobbits as much as they could. So as soon as the journey started and it got real and everything turns out the way it does, that you feel just as weighed down as he does, taking this burden on and going through everything he went through, because he is, humans are violent and greedy creatures, and everyone in the Shire, all the hobbits, there is no sense of. I mean, there's a little bit of greed with the Saxville Bagginses and stuff like that. Everyone's got it, but as far as like I guess a race goes, there's no. It's a
section of Middle Earth that's kind of remained untouched.
Exactly, and the innocence is there, and I really felt that he had that visually. He had to visually show you and bring you into that, and then be like, "All right, just when I have you, we're taking the journey now." And Fellowship was, like you said, not all the action that Two Towers and Return of the King had, but it was enough to. It got the ball rolling. It got the journey going, and it was kind of like you thought that was bad.
Yes.
Wait till Two Towers and Return of the King, because there is a lot that is about to happen. The story has just begun. Was really that last thing as Frodo and Sam are climbing out the other side of the river down to the mountains before the Two Towers starts. I could go on for a little Lord of the Rings.
We both could. Yeah.
I think we spent more time on just your favorites. I haven't even got to the track yet, so we should probably do that. But I will say you also have Star Wars A New Hope, Fantasia, and Memoirs of a Geisha as your other three on your top 5.
So I feel like I absolutely needed to include a Star Wars because Star Wars has kind of been so impactful and so much on my life. And honestly, what Star Wars sat in that place flipped multiple times before I'm sitting here.
I mean, it's not a bad place to be.
No, it's absolutely not. And I think that I ended up going with A New Hope in this case just because it is the first Star Wars. And it, I don't know how familiar you are with the hero's journey and stuff, but it's so... perfectly lays out the steps of that. Do you know about the hero's journey at all?
What do you mean?
So the hero's journey is it goes back to mythology of it's basically so many stories both in films, books, and everything all have a similar plot, and it's broken down to a series of steps. And I can show you, I'm showing you on my phone or whatever, but it breaks a story down into you have a call to an adventure, sometimes with a supernatural aid, Threshold Guardian, and then from the call to adventure, you have your hero ultimately launch out on their adventure, typically with the aid of a mentor or helper. With that, there are challenges and temptations that ensue. It continues going. Sorry, we may end up cutting all of this out, and that's totally fine. No. But Star Wars is literally almost the word-for-word parallel of the hero's journey.
Yeah.
With that, and episode 4 particularly lays that out so well.
Yeah.
We just slightly derailed this a little
Maybe
bit. Maybe
it's okay.
We can. I mean, we don't even need to talk about Star Wars, honestly, because we will be talking about it later.
We will be talking about it later, or at least another episode. So, we're gonna get on the track before we get too far off. We got a vehicle off track. We need maintenance.
We may go 101.
We might. So, going on the track, your favorite musical is one that's already on the ride.
Yeah.
Singing in the Rain,
yes.
A classic. Everyone who rode the ride loved going. I loved going by and just kind of swaying my head and being.
Singing in the Rain, just as a movie, is perfect golden age musical for everyone. You have the excitement of like the making of the movie, and you have romance, you have some of the best musical numbers and dancing performance. It literally just has everything, as well as a compelling story and everything. I probably didn't need to go into this much detail, but that's okay.
It's okay. No, this is as much as we're looking for. I mean, it being on the ride, it's one of those where it's really hard to replace what's already there, considering it's on your list.
Well, and if I were to make this as a scene, I would probably end up keeping the Gene Kelly because that's the most iconic. I wouldn't be opposed to Donald O'Connor doing Make 'Em Laugh, because that's also such an iconic number, but I think we would keep Gene Kelly in his lamppost.
What would you say about your second favorite musical, which is Chicago?
So for Chicago, as a film, I don't think that you could get away with not doing the Cell Block Tango because of how iconic that piece is.
That's the one that's most known for you.
It's so well staged in both the movie and in the musical. But Chicago as a movie is actually having seen both adaptations on stage of Chicago as well as seeing the movie, I think that actually the movie musical is better than the stage musical and flows better as a story and as a piece altogether.
Yeah.
But no, definitely if we were putting this on the ride, it would be Cell Block Tango. You would have the multiple rows of jail cells with the red lights silhouetting the probably animatronic figures of the different women in death row doing their little dances and poses.
And Renee Zellweger just won an Oscar. Judy Garland, of course, Wizard of Oz. So it's nice to see that she's still getting some recognition. She took a little while off acting, but I want to say that and Bridget Jones' Diary are like the two most well-known movies that she's done since before making her, I guess, comeback or whatever you want to call it. I haven't seen Chicago fully, but I have seen that scene because, like you said, it's a staple of musicals.
Yes.
And every time that there's like some kind of montage or anything on movies and it sets toward the musical, you tend to see that scene.
Oh,
that is the one that always shows.
And there are so many parodies of it in pop culture.
There really is. We're going through the doors and we're going into Crime Alley, which this time around, it's not so much the mob movies, but you definitely touched a crime one. So I'm sure we'll find a way to put this in here because Leonardo DiCaprio is running from us, and we're going to try to catch him if we can.
Yes, hopefully Carl Hanratty can do the job.
Tom Hanks
Tom
was
Hanks
so great in that.
yes.
I love that movie very much, and I just recently saw it for the first time.
For the first time,
I don't know. It took me a while. I'm playing catch up on a lot of movies.
I mean, I am as well, and people are shocked to know that like I've seen hardly any of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's one of my biggest weaknesses in the film department. I feel like for pop culture at least.
It's not completely everyone's cup of tea, the MCU, and that's perfectly fine.
It's not that I dislike it. It's more that superhero movies don't always interest me as much as I feel like they could or should. There are obviously a lot of exceptions because I love Guardians of the Galaxy. And
those are the best. Guardians, I love those. With Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah, we've already derailed from that.
It's okay. Leo, he's of course running from the FBI. He keeps coming up with multiple identities, and Tom Hanks is hunting him down. Mm-hmm. And Steven Spielberg came out with this movie in 2002 and crafted this genius film of pretty much he was just dodging the authorities based on changing his identity over and over and outsmarting them, and it even went to the point where he was calling them and kind of like calling their bluff almost. And this is based on true events.
Yes.
And then I don't want to spoil the movie for you if you're like me and have not seen it up until recently or now, but it's pretty great to see the outcome and the turn of events that occurs with Leonardo DiCaprio's character. I really enjoyed this film, and Spielberg, just everything he does. Every time we've talked about it, he is always on top of his game with his filmmaking, and he's one of the best storytellers of our generation.
Yes,
if not the best storyteller of our generation.
I think that this may be my favorite cat and mouse film.
I mean, having recently seen it, it's certainly it'll be a new addition to the list, but it's definitely on mine too.
Yeah, well, I think that part of what makes it so nice is that it's one of the few, or I shouldn't even necessarily say one of the few films, but you're kind of almost equally rooting for Frank Abagnale Jr. to get away with it, as well as for Tom Hanks to catch him.
Yeah.
Like you kind of you appreciate each character in their own right.
Kind of like you're standing in the middle of a tug of war and you're rooting for either of them.
Yes,
it's
and you as the audience are always happy.
Exactly.
No spoilers, but
exactly. No, the outcome of the movie was wonderful. Loved every bit of it. Do you have a scene that you would put in?
Like actually, while we've been saying all this, I'm like, oh, what is like? Because typically I feel like Movie Ride, you do the most iconic scene, but to me, the image that keeps jumping into my mind is him when he's taken on the identity of the airline pilot.
I was thinking the same thing.
and whether that's him surrounded by the flight attendants or having them kind of like staged, and how all the police officers are only looking at them and not him, and he's able to escape to Paris because of that. Or the other image that I keep seeing is, again, I don't know how you could stage this, is with the bathtub, and how he has like the 50,000 models of the plane that he had to keep taking the sticker, the labels off of to put on his checks to make them work. I don't know if that wouldn't quite work, but I think it would be him with the
I like what I did too, because if we were going to go the gangster route this round, you could have him ducking into them.
Maybe as an Imagineering Easter egg, you have like the door half open, you can see the planes.
And then he could actually take the ride.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, get out of here, I gotta go. And then like wear his getaway car to get away from Tom Hanks' character. That would
if we were doing gangster route, that would probably work.
Psst. Hey, you. Yeah, I'm talking to you, listening to the great movie radio show starring Chris Schneider. I don't want anybody to get hurt, so don't go moving around until this Movie Talk podcast comes back. Capiche?
Warning. Remain on this podcast. The advertisement you are experiencing is extremely dangerous. Proceed with caution.
The heat's on, see? Which means it's time for Chris Schneider, host of the Great Movie Radio Show, to get back to work. I gotta lay low myself. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss another episode of this Movie Talk podcast. Do it, or else. If you know what I mean.
Alright, we're back, and we've just been taken by Leonardo DiCaprio, or someone posing as this character from Catch Me If You Can, which isn't necessarily a mob movie, but it's in the crime genre, definitely, yes. And we're gonna let it go this time. I mean, we've already been taken...
I haven't seen that many mob films. I mean, I have some, but...
I mean, you have quite a few good ones on here. Scarface, Public Enemy, Pulp Fiction, and Baby Driver. It's a great list, but Catch Me If You Can is such a fun movie that I wasn't going to just let it slide. And I kind of like the idea of... We're the getaway car, which we were from the get-go at Gangster Alley. So it holds that same spirit.
Yeah.
That we're the getaway vehicle, so I like where it's going. So Leo is taking us into Western with 310 to Yuma, which is one I have never seen. Don't judge me, whatever. I've never come across this movie to finally sit down and watch it, and I need to. But what about it stands out to you, if I may ask?
To me, it's a fun action film. It's a fun just action cowboy film. The dynamic that you have with the characters, I'm also referring to the one from 2007 with Christian Bale.
Okay,
and
I was going to ask you.
I know that there is the older one, but it's one that you do have a likable villain, Ben Wade, and while they're taking him into custody to try to eventually take him and get him on the 310 to Yuma train, you get to see the dynamic, and you get to see him kind of even though he's in captivity, play with the other like cowhands basically who are taking him in, kind of not quite in a Hannibal Lecter way, but almost in seeing the I don't even know what I'm saying anymore.
It's okay. I was actually going to say, I was looking up the movie, and I can't believe that I have gone this long without knowing James Mangold directed it. And he, of course, brought us the wonderful Logan movie, and recently did Ford vs. Ferrari, which was such a good movie.
I haven't seen that one yet.
It was wonderful. Matt Damon and Christian Bale's chemistry together was amazing. Excuse me, almost slightly outdone by Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio, who's taking us hostage right now anyway. So, but Mangold's a great director, and I didn't know he did that film, so I'm kind of more intrigued now. And then, of course, Christian Bale is in this. Russell Crowe is a great actor. I'm definitely going to have to sit down and watch this movie soon, because I'm highly surprised that I've missed it this long. Do you have a scene in the film that you can think of?
Yeah. So the scene that I would probably do from this is when they finally get to the town, I think it's Contention City, where the train is supposed to arrive at 3:10 the following day. They're holed up basically in a hotel, and Ben Wade's posse rides into town and catches them. And so I think that as the vehicle is coming through, you would have Charlie Prince, who's his second in command, come out and basically says, "They've got Ben Wade up there. I will give $50 to anyone in this town who will help me take him back." And so you literally have basically the entire town rise up with their guns because it's the middle of the West and they're poor. And so you literally have Christian Bale and trying to get Russell Crowe to the train. Against the entire town of, I mean, it's only 50 people or something, but that still is a lot for one person and someone in handcuffs to take out. So I think that scene-wise, having the vehicle come through and having Charlie Prince offer that, and then you have a ton of animatronics rise up with guns, and then it's a
plus
shootout.
we're there too.
Yes.
Another fun route that if we had taken a Bandit show this round, we could have been the getaway for Russell Crowe and Christian Bale's characters this round. Or at least one of them. Like, one of them could have... It would have almost been like a double Bandit. I think you go out there...
Well, then it would work even more perfectly, because as you're pulling up, Christian Bale could think that you are the 310 to Yuma.
Yeah.
And then be like, wait, what is this? And then, you have Ben Wade, Russell Crowe's character. I know this movie, I promise. Break away and take over the vehicle.
We could be the 310. That would be fun. So it's definitely got the... I've been focusing on one or the other, but this round it's almost like we've got it programmed to be able to do both. So that's really great. And even if for back in Gangster, we're taken by Leo for a gangster car, he could just miss us if we're going to go on the Bandit and then take the one that's stopping. Yeah. So it works either way. Yeah. So this is probably the first time we've been thinking of both sides of the show. So that's nice. I really like that. I love the next one on your Western list. I'm just going to say a quick word about it. Django Unchained.
Yes.
Phenomenal movie. Tarantino is my favorite director. I don't watch a lot of Westerns, but I loved what he did with this movie, and I loved that he included the original Django from the old spaghetti Westerns in this movie, even as just for a brief moment. Tarantino loves to play homage to his inspirations in this film. And even by just bringing them in, like, I'm kind of copying, or not copying, but I'm inspired by what you do with your character that I'm basing my people off of. Come be in my film, or for come make the music for my film. I love your music from your movies that I've taken that from and put in my other films. Yeah, he's such a great filmmaker, and I love Django Unchained so much. And Jamie Foxx. Versus Leo again. He's a great actor.
I was going to say, I don't actually think I realized how much Leo's popping up in my film list.
I was going to say you have quite a few of them going on here, which is...
He plays such a love-to-hate villain.
He really does. And you've never really seen many villain characters from him.
Yes.
If you don't count, Man in the Iron Mask? Because he played the dual role in that one.
Yeah.
But he's a wonderful actor, and I loved him taking the villain turn in Django Unchained, and Jamie Foxx coming out on top and just pretty much showing all the white people what's up. Pretty much, they needed it. So we're going to continue through either as Leo's getaway car getting out of Western, or as the 310 to Yuma getting out of the town and going into your sci-fi realm, which this one's already on the right too, so I feel like we need to visit another one. Your top one is Alien.
Yes. And honestly, in all the discussions, I'll just say this, in all the discussions that we had backstage at Movie Ride of like, oh, what would you change or put in different scenes? Alien was always the one, even with people saying that it was dated, was the scene that if I could save one, that's what I would save.
I agree. I might change the presentation of the scene. Yes. Like the ceiling alien, I might change his dynamic a bit. But as far as everything that was included, or I would at least update the presentation.
Yes.
But I would not change a damn thing in that area whatsoever. I love Alien, and that was my favorite section, and I wrote it the least.
Yeah, unfortunately, me too.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I would like to say, though, your next sci-fi movie is one of my all-time favorites that, as a child, I was very bored with. because I just it was too smart for me, and B, it was just slow moving, and I just needed to be older and more mature to get it, I guess. But Blade Runner,
yes,
is your number 2 science fiction that I think we need to give Alien a break and show some love. So what about Blade Runner for you, man?
Well, Blade Runner is just such a work of art. And first of all, I'm also still kind of hung up on as a child.
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say that's not a film for children.
I mean, I was like 12, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was gonna say certainly at that age it would probably just be boring instead of smart. But it's one where I'm a sucker for dystopian worlds, and the dystopian world, the dystopian version of LA that they paint is so fantastic. The production design in that film is amazing. But also just dealing with, and I also, the other thing that I'm a sucker for is dealing with kind of what is human as nature, and that's the whole thing that this film cruxes upon.
What does it mean to be human?
What does it mean to be human? And depending on the version of the film that you watch, I don't even know how many different versions, like edits, there's 5 different edits of Blade Runner. Depending on the different version, you ultimately have the question of Harrison Ford is Decker. Is Decker a replicant himself, even though he spends his life hunting down and retiring replicants?
It was. I remember that being a thing. So I saw it probably when I was like 12 or 13. I don't remember, and I was bored by it. But I kind of told myself, I know I'm supposed to like this, maybe someday. So in my 20s, I revisited it, and I watched it. I sat down and I watched the final cut. So I don't remember which version of it I watched when I was a kid, because there's 5 different ones.
Yeah.
I have all of them. There's like a box set that I picked up that has all the different versions, and I haven't sat down and watched every single one yet. I think I've watched 3 of them. And there's very subtle differences in some of them, and then in other versions there's a lot of differences. There's one with kind of more of a narration, like you're inside the mind of Harrison Ford, and then there's one where it switches up the order and the editing of the film, yet everything, maybe sans a clip or 2, are there. And it's just very strange to see this movie being touched up so many times throughout the years, because Ridley Scott just wanted it to be perfect. But I feel that the final cut is the one that's mainly held in the highest regard. But all the others have been watched throughout the years, and of course, the movie as a whole is held as a cult classic. Yes, in the science fiction.
And that's where I'm going to be honest. I'm actually not sure what version I've seen.
Yeah,
because I think I've only seen the film 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And having them been years apart, I'm not sure if I've seen multiple versions or if I've seen the same version multiple times. I think that at least one of them was the final cut, or what they consider the final cut. But
I was going to go see it in the theater recently, and the theater, they advertised it was the director's cut. And what's funny is you think director's cut, oh yeah, that's it. Well, the Blade Runner had a director's cut and a final cut.
Yes.
And so you would click on director's cut, and it would have you pick the showtime, and it said final cut. And I understand that in most cases there's not a director's cut and a final cut, but for this one, for diehard fans, you don't divide those two.
Yes.
So I ended up just staying home and watching the director's cut, even though I was like, I wanted a chance to say I've seen 2 versions of it in the theaters, because I wasn't alive when it came out originally. It came out in '82.
Yeah.
And but the final cut came out, I want to say 2007 or so. So it's only been around for like 13 years. But again, it's the most prominent. Ridley Scott said this is the version of his ideal version of the film, or most ideal. And the sequel, 2049, actually hops off the final cut train. So it continues from there. And I love that the sequel never answered the question if he's a replicant or not. The base, like you're saying, he could be, and he's been hunting his own kind. When 2049, spoiler, and you find this out literally in the first 2 minutes of 2049. Ryan Gosling's Blade Runner is a replicant.
Yes,
and he's hunting his own kind. And they give you all these little subtle hints that could they be answering the question? Are they answering the question, or are they just their own thing? and then letting you still like off the hook on, well, what about Deckard? What is he? You know, and you don't know, and that's the beauty of it. It's just this mystery that's still there, and Ridley Scott has said he is, and Ridley Scott has said he isn't. Harrison Ford's been just like whatever. And I think that's the main draw to it. It's after 2 movies and so much time since it's been out. It's still such a mystery, but it's also right in front of you, and like Inception almost.
Yes,
that it's just up to your imagination, really. What's going on? Do you have a part that you would put in?
So,
since you said you've only seen it a few times,
and that's where the most iconic thing that I can think of, and it would be hard to do. So I feel like you would almost just have a staging is. The chase through the market.
Oh, that's a good one.
With where it eventually ends with him shooting her falling through the 5 panes of glass. Yeah. I don't think that you could do that in a resettable way in the alien space, so I don't know if that's something where you could stage her already broken through the glass.
I mean, you could. I mean, I'm thinking about the layout of the ride already and what could just easily, I don't want to say easily be replaced, because, I mean, this is in our mind's eye, but if you think of that hallway where Alien is and the ladder's going down, you could have Deckard standing there with the gun and her already laying on the ground with the glass around her.
Yes.
That would be, and that hallway is like that corridor of shops. And that could be a spot. I like that one because of how large Alien is, and Blade Runner deserves another iconic scene. Personally, Tears in Rain is my favorite.
Yes.
The monologue, Rutger Hauer, actually improv for the film. You could almost have him at the end, like Deckard sitting on top of the building, and then Rutger Hauer has the dove, and he's sitting there, and the animatronic of him is like petting the dove, and he's, you know, I've seen things you people would not believe. Oh, God. It would just be the greatest thing. And I would probably cry every time I'm on the ride, because just the fact that I'm, like, in Blade Runner right there, I would love it. Kind of would almost... And I'm not trying to take your thunder. I'm so sorry. I love the movie so much. I'm like, put everything in there. Just make a Blade Runner ride.
I've had friends in grad school who pitched an idea for a Blade Runner ride.
Oh, I want to meet them. Tell me your ideas. I'm already in love. Even like the spinners and like the smoke everywhere. Oh, you could have...
Well, and that's where, like, there's also just the very simple, iconic scene of the spinner in the rain.
Yeah, coming
like,
down
slowly
with the smoke.
lowering down. That's where I'm like, you could easily do that, even if you just had Deckard with the android already broken on the ground.
You could have him and then him over. Yes, kind of where the smoke comes out for Alien. Anyways, yes,
I wouldn't get to indulge your Tears of Rain that way, unfortunately. But
you can still have it later. You can have it right near the end, where all the foam
from that point on, it just becomes Blade
Runner. Hey, Dexter has come to visit us. He knows I love Blade Runner. He does. He heard. I don't know. What did you hear? He was talking about something. But no, I love that movie so much, and I love that the sequel is almost its own standalone feature. If you hadn't seen Blade Runner, it could be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. But we're going to. I kind of want him to release the dove at the end, because if you have that little selection, they just have to sit there. They don't even have to like move around, or they could just sit there. So it's like a little tiny spot. But if he releases the dove, and then we go into adventure, and a T-Rex eats the dove, because we're going into Jurassic Park. I'm sorry, I'm weird, but no, that would be funny. It'd be almost like the goat scene with the T-Rex.
Okay, well that's the scene that I would choose.
Is it really?
Is where you originally met the T-Rex.
So we're going into where Indiana Jones would be in Raiders, and we're going into Jurassic Park. Bad harmonica music here.
Yeah, it's all good. Or kazoo.
The kazoo, yeah. But no, I everyone loves Jurassic Park, and if you don't, then you need to stop listening. It's a wonderful film, and it's the first one I remember seeing in the theater.
Wow.
I mean, I was probably like 7, but it's the first one I remember seeing in the theater. What about you? What?
I wasn't born when the film came out. Technically,
I was gonna say it came out in '93, but
yes, I was born in '93, but it was released in June, I think, and I was born in August.
I was gonna say you were released in August.
I was released in August. Yes.
Jesse Techentin, the movie.
no one would watch that.
You're married, of course they would.
No, I was going to say, I'm so drawn to Jurassic Park partially because you have that good old... I'm a huge fan of Michael Crichton as an author. He's probably my favorite author in his sci-fi works. And Jurassic Park as a book is fantastic. It's very different from the Steven Spielberg film, and it would be a much darker and grittier and smarter film in some cases than if you made it truly based off of the book. But over the book, I actually do prefer Spielberg's classic storytelling and bringing that world to life. What I especially appreciate about Jurassic Park in this day and age, and I apologize, but because I'm a designer by trade, I'm going to keep bringing it back to the design, is how, to this day, Jurassic Park is what, now 93, so it's
almost 30 years.
Almost 30 years old. To this day, the sequences in there where you have the T-Rexes and everything look more real than, to me, some of the Jurassic World CGI sequences look, because they built animatronic dinosaurs and just kind of let them go wild in some cases. And and they used early CGI as well, but...
Oh yeah, the whole field when they're all looking on, and that was all CGI.
Yes.
But it was still good for 93.
Yes.
Which you didn't see that good of CGI.
Well, and it's largely because most of the sequences where they use the CGI dinosaurs, they do with such stark contrast lighting. Like, for when you first see the T-Rex, the few scenes where you see that, it's the darkness of night and then the bright light of those flashlights, and so you have this extreme contrast. And back then, the render engines could do that type of lighting well. It was when you had to do more realistic,
like when they're
sunlight,
running through the field and
correct.
all that, yeah.
That's when it shows some of the, okay, you're not quite there, but you're playing and you're dabbling.
Yeah. It still looked great.
Yes.
It still great.
Does.
I mean, we didn't have a movie like it either that explored dinosaurs the way it did. I mean, you had those really bad B science fiction movies of this is just someone to throw out, the T-Rex from Titan or something, and it's a freaking dinosaur that's from space, and it just looks like Godzilla.
Yes.
And you really didn't have a lot of big dinosaur movies that weren't animated, They're Back or Dinosaur Story or
in some cases you didn't have. You did, but you didn't have creature films like this that had creatures that impressive. I know that you've had multiple iterations of King Kong.
Oh yeah.
And they had there was the one in the 70s that was fairly impressive for how big the animatronic and everything was. But the technology for Jurassic Park had improved just enough that you had better speed, and with that more believability to your audiences.
No, it was definitely a game changer for modern day cinema, especially like you were saying, creature movies, and even Godzilla that came out 5 years later in '98 with Matthew Broderick, and that horrible CGI for Godzilla. You look at the T-Rex in Jurassic Park, and you look at Godzilla, Jurassic Park any day. And the thing came out 5 years prior. If that tells you anything, then yeah, Spielberg's a winner. That's all I gotta say. So the goat scene is your...
That I think that would work best where you originally had Indy and Sala lifting the Ark. You would have the 10,000 volt fence with the foliage and everything at night, and you could choose, if it was me, you would have the T-Rex touch the fence, and then you'd have part of the fence break, and you would see the full T-Rex there.
Oh my god. And you're like the car on the track, or the Jeeps.
Crawling at 3 miles an hour, which would make it even worse.
And of course, you would scare the crap out of either Leonardo DiCaprio or Christian Bale from 310 to Yuma. The T-Rex. Oh man. This is great. I love this ride so much.
That worked well.
It did. So we're going to go into horror. And, we thought we had a bag with Jurassic Park. We're going to another Spielberg classic with Jaws. And we got to somehow unload our Bandit or Gangster into a shark or something like that.
I promise, just because I work for Universal, I'm not trying to turn this into a Universal ride, but it apparently is naturally
They're such iconic
happening.
movies. There is nothing wrong with that.
No, they are.
Hey, if I could say anything, your number 2 is Pirates of the Caribbean. And then you have Coraline and other movies on your horror and action. So yeah, this is not just purely Universal. I think it's more Spielberg than anything. And plus, like you said, you're a design junkie, and
yes,
the design on all of these are phenomenal. So it just strikes a chord with you. So Jaws. What about that? When was the first time you saw it?
Oh gosh, when was the first? So my parents wouldn't let me see it for a fairly long time because they had seen it at a young enough age that it actually freaked them out from going to the beach, and with them both growing up in California, that was actually slightly problematic. And they didn't want that for their child.
Yeah.
I didn't live near a beach, so it wasn't really a problem, but I don't think I saw it until I was 16 or something. It was much later than it probably should have been. And that is the perfect to me it's such a good horror film because it is scary because of what you don't see more than what you do, which I know is a classic horror trope, but Jaws I think was one of the first to do that so effectively. And
the looming danger, because you can't see it in the water half the time.
Exactly. Well, and we also know now from seeing and hearing so many Spielberg interviews and stuff that they made the film that way because the animatronic shark that they built never worked very well, and that was their excuse of both keeping the budget down and not using that so much. So that's why you have the...
And they did it so wonderfully.
No, they did do it perfectly. And honestly, like, I think that the suspense and the scariness of watching people get dragged beneath the water without even seeing the shark is more scary than if you see it. I mean, what was the film, The Meg or whatever that recently came out? That like that, all of them you can see the giant jaws like coming out and snapping.
That movie was so bad. The ending, when the little underwater submarine little capsule thing like just bumps it, and you just hear bunk, and I was just like, this is so bad. Did you see the Meg?
I don't think I no.
Oh,
I have
okay. You're good.
I that was one where for a while my like YouTube ads and stuff were nothing but the Meg trailers. So I probably saw the best 30 seconds of the film because isn't that what they do for trailers? But
I wouldn't necessarily say any part of that movie was the best 30 seconds of that film, but you can only do so much.
I was going to say we had this conversation off camera or off mic for the intensive purposes of this show, but I've only recently kind of gotten into horror. I've started seeing more horror, and I think to me first and foremost, and it's the reason why Jaws is top on this list, is Jaws by itself is a fantastic movie and a fantastic story, and the characters are great, and the overall crafted through line of the film and the plot and everything is great, and it happens to have a couple of horror sequences that kind of and it accentuates and helps the story, but first and foremost it has a fantastic story and a fantastic premise, whereas I feel like a lot of horror films, they're there to scare you, to show blood and gore, to do like certain things, and the story is not necessarily always stellar, or is not always front and center.
Yeah.
And all of the ones that are on my list, I like to think have the story kind of front and center, barring number 5, which we'll talk about later.
We'll definitely be touching that one later. Yeah. So, what part of Jaws would you put on the ride? Like I said, this is going to be the part that we're taking the Bandit or Gangster.
You know, we need to get rid of Leo or Russell Crowe or so. Gonna be honest, I haven't thought this one out. I would love to have them. You need a catalyst for them to get off the vehicle, because I'm thinking if you had a harbor or something, whether they decided that they were far enough away and this was a good time to get away, I would love to have them actually get eaten by an animatronic shark, go down like a little slide down the shark's mouth or whatever.
You could always have them try to save the captain when the shark is getting him, and then it just goes.
The
captain.
You could have the tour guide on a boat, like, oh, excuse me, could you help me with this for a sec? And then he falls over, and then you have the fin falls over out of view, and then you have screams.
We're just falling on like a pad.
Yeah. And you can add in a little. They hit a button that makes a splash sound or something.
Oh my god,
that would probably be the best course of action. I'd still love a big giant shark slide that they can go through and get eaten, but
I just want to ride a slide at work.
Exactly. I just want to every if you're Gangster or Bandit, every 7 minutes go down a slide.
101. All right, tour guides. Everyone's going to the slide.
Everyone just keeps going down the slide. Yeah.
I'm not Bandit trying to get to the slide.
I feel like that would be the new handprint hall or whatever.
Oh
as
my
well.
God.
If once you train on the ride,
go down the slide.
You get to go down the slide for the first time and sign the inside of his mouth or whatever.
Oh yeah. We could have his fin looming on the other side of the ride, maybe, or make it to where it's like going that way, and then you see it come here, and then the boat, and then you don't see anything, and it's disappeared. There's so many great ideas for that. I specifically love the monologue the captain gave. I hadn't seen Jaws in its entirety until last year, and it was summertime. And I was sitting with some friends and my wife, and we were watching it, and the movie was great, but that monologue happened, and I just got sucked in to the
about
story.
When he first comes into the town hall and he's talking about, like, have you ever seen a shark? And
no, when they're on the boat and they're drunk.
That one.
And he's talking to him about his past experiences and dealing with things, and you just hear about the horrors of the ocean and the sea. And
I know the monologue that you're talking about now. Yeah.
God, I was just in, and then it ended. I was like, whoa. And then he's been in another great movie, The Sting, with Robert Redford and Paul Newman. That was a great film as well. I love Jaws. I'm glad I finally got to see the whole thing. That would be a great horror spot to be rid of our gangster or bandit. So
probably works better than our Leonardo DiCaprio or Russell Crowe getting buttons sewn on their eyes, because Coraline would be the number 2, and I don't know how we would make that work.
We could always go with your number 3 with Pennywise and be like, hello.
I don't. Yeah.
There's we'll be fine with Jaws. We're going into drama now, and where Tarzan and Casablanca would be, and you have Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and honestly, I don't know if it's probably. I mean, I know we have like a shark just eating somebody, but this
is a lot of darkness for Disney.
Yeah, so we're even Universal. It's a lot of darkness. So we're gonna shift forward a little bit. You have quite a few good movies on this list. I haven't seen Your Name. Memoirs of a Geisha, which is in your top 5.
I feel like Memoirs of a Geisha might work.
I think it would
well
too.
For this.
The drama that it's not as extreme as Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Definitely.
That would be a nice. And you could even with the ocean transition from Jaws nicely into the seas of Japan, and then ultimately into the geisha house.
Which, depending on how some people look at it, it might be a little inappropriate, but if it's,
you would do it you wouldn't do certain sequences.
Of course.
You would do others.
It's more for the artistic value.
Yes.
Because the film was definitely artistic.
I was going to say, and that's honestly why Memoirs of a Geisha is on my top 5 film list, is I think of all films that I've seen, that might be the best cinematography I've ever seen on any film, and that's one where also from the first narration over of much older Sayuri kind of beginning to narrate and tell her childhood, and from being sold by her parents to becoming a geisha, I've been hooked in. But in terms of putting this on the ride, I feel like the sequence that you would want to do would be you've seen the film?
I have not.
You have not seen the film.
But I know Rob Marshall made it.
Rob Marshall made it. John Williams did the score. And, this actually may be my favorite John Williams score of any film.
I've heard it's great, and it's actually, you were talking about the cinematography. It won Best Cinematography.
It better have. I actually didn't know that, but that makes me extremely happy. It won
Best Cinematography in 2006, and John Williams, I think, was either nominated or won for the Oscar for it, for the best score. So it's he was nominated. He didn't win. Okay. It says best costumes. So
yes,
for both cinematography,
absolutely.
Colleen Atwood's a genius with costumes.
Oh, that was Colleen Atwood.
Yes, it was.
Yes,
she's wonderful.
Yes,
it's another one of those that I've seen like it available on Prime or Netflix, and I've just kind of just passed it.
It's not the fastest paced movie. It does take its time with story, which is not something that you commonly see in American cinema, but was a very refreshing breath. But it's just a beautiful story overall, and it's gorgeous to look at, and with the music and everything, it's just a wonderful experience all the way through.
I've seen the trailer and I've seen clips, and it just looks beautiful every time I see it. I just again, I have not just gotten around to see it, and I probably need to. I say that for everything I haven't watched. I should watch that. I want to watch everything.
Yeah.
Trust me. I wish there was more time. Instead, I'm doing this show about movies I haven't seen.
No, this is very well worthwhile. I think the listeners agree.
I likely hope so. We're going into animation, and your list. I love the diversity and the styles of animation.
Well,
of your
so
list.
we've already said, and off camera had this discussion. I hate picking favorites. Everything that's on this list, you may actually talk to me in real life, and I'm like, oh yeah, I changed my mind since then. With my animation list, because I love animated films so much, I purposefully chose kind of one from each of the big studios.
I appreciate that. And your number 3 is actually, I think, my number 3, Kubo and the Two Strings.
Oh.
I love that movie
Kubo
so
and
much.
the Two Strings.
Leica Productions, who just recently did Missing Link, is a phenomenal
I still have not
stop-motion.
seen Missing Link.
And we're going to talk about the next episode. I saw that's on your list. It's a wonderful film, and I love Kubo, and I didn't expect Matthew McConaughey's voice to work as the way it did.
I know.
Because you think of him as a samurai, and I was like, and then you watch it, and you're like, yep.
Yep, perfect.
But it's pretty much the adventure of this kid finding himself through his parents and his legacy of his family, and it's such a good film. But Spirited Away. Oh, sorry.
No, just fun thing to point out. Kubo and the Two Strings was the first. I'm not sure if it won. It was the first animated film to be nominated for Best Costume Design. For the Oscar.
That's right.
Because
because of the stop motion.
Yeah, because Leica's stop motion, they physically had to make all of the costumes. I'm not sure if it won. I think it did.
I want to say
my wife
did.
makes costumes for a living, so we were both extremely impressed. We were both very impressed by Leica in general. But
it was nominated for. It was not nominated for costumes. It was nominated for visual effects.
Okay, that I knew.
And then Best Animated. It did not win, but it was nominated for both in 2017.
What was it up against for Oscar? Because I feel like that should have won.
I have no idea.
It was probably whatever the Pixar was that year.
Probably.
Which is still under... Like, I love Pixar. But I remember thinking Kubo definitely should have won. So never mind, that was a lie.
I don't know what won that year, but you don't deserve it. Kubo does. Sorry. I don't care who you are.
Kubo does.
Yeah, Kubo, I love that film so much. I think my wife and I went out for her birthday that night for dinner, and that was like the only good movie playing, and we watched it, and both immediately were like, yeah, I want to watch that again. That was so good.
That was one that my wife and I, we wanted to see it in theaters, and we just didn't have the time, but then when we inevitably saw it when it came out, it was so good.
Did you buy it and then watched it, or did you see it when it came out and you're like, we have to buy that?
We rented it, and actually I haven't purchased it yet, but I want to. Because this definitely deserves to be in my personal collection. It's
one of the best animated movies I've ever seen, and everything they've done, Leica, has been wonderful. Box Trolls, Missing Link, of course, Coraline. Everyone loves Coraline. Wonderful film, and you do have Spirited Away.
We already talked a lot about Spirited Away,
and then How to Train Your Dragon is your number 2 on animation.
That's my top DreamWorks. Actually, Prince of Egypt might be my top, but How to Train Your Dragon deserves the love that it gets because DreamWorks really did such a fantastic job crafting wonderful, lovable, kind of boy and his dog story, but it's boy and his dragon.
Boy and his dragon, yeah.
And the unlikely friendship that comes from that, and ultimately ends up saving both his Viking clan and the dragons as a whole.
And also his relationship with his father.
Yes.
At least the first one.
Gerard Butler.
Gerard Butler. Oh, I love him. Kubo and Two Strings. Hercules
is... I don't even know if it's fair to say it's an underrated Disney film, but I feel like so many people gravitate towards Aladdin, Lion King, Beauty and the Beast and stuff, and of the 90s, of that kind of rebirth Disney renaissance, Hercules is my personal favorite. Every time I watch it, it just gets better.
It's been a minute since I've seen it, but I definitely enjoy that film. WALL-E is your number 5. That is one of my favorite animated... It's probably my favorite Pixar film.
That's my favorite Pixar film, and that's an unpopular choice typically, so I'm glad that I'm not not the only one. It's the silent nature and the how much emotion Pixar can get from no dialogue and characters that don't really have facial expressions, to be honest. Yeah, just beep boops, but it tells one of the best love stories like that I've seen on screen.
It does, and I love the fact that it's telling us to get off our fat butts and do something.
And save the planet. Yes.
Recycle.
It has all the messages that America needs.
It does. So out of the 5, I mean, you could put anything in animation. What would you do?
Well, and just so we're on the same page, animation. This is going where Fantasia was originally on Movie Rides. So
you could do animatronics.
You could do
anything you want.
This sequence I've actually thought out if it's in the Fantasia spot.
Yep.
So typically you have Sorcerer Mickey on the old swirl that was originally going to be the tornado for Wizard of Oz before that didn't happen on the ride. So I would put Spirited Away here, and the sequence that I would do is that entire curved side where Mickey normally is would be a scrim that would have projected the night sky on there, and you would have Chihiro riding on Haku the dragon going across, but then halfway as you're going around that turn, Haku would break away into the scales once she guesses his name, and the scrim would become rear lit, and you would see the animatronics of them kind of floating or falling in the sky of human Haku and Chihiro holding hands,
going from a projection to
while you have the Joe Hisashi score going, and
going from the animation to the animatronic. Yes. I'm sorry, that is a cool idea. The transition I'm sure would be pretty awesome too, and a wonderful spiritual celebration of that film.
Yes.
I want to. Can we build it right now?
Please.
I'm in.
Well, I was going to say we've got a railway opening in a couple of weeks, so I don't think that option's on the table anymore. But I'm excited for the cast, and I'm not going to lie. I'm optimistic for what that ride will.
I'm glad the building's getting used again. I'm not glad it's not still Movie Ride.
No,
that's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no hate, but no love either.
No, we did lose.
I don't know.
We did lose a gem of an attraction.
You had so much room to do other things in other places.
So
we're gonna go into comedy, and comedy's taking the place of Wizards of Oz because the ride didn't really visit it. I know I've said it so many times on the show that the listeners probably get it, but just to kind of reiterate the reason why we're visiting it here. But what Wizard of Oz did is provide this lovely interactive piece before we went into the finale.
Yes.
And so while visiting comedy, I try to pick one on the list of the 5 that would be interactive enough.
Yes.
And good for us, the first one is. Unfortunately for us, the ride does not go 88 miles per hour, and so we will not be going in anywhere time traveling wise. But Back to the Future is your favorite comedy.
I knew this had to be on the list, and I'm gonna be honest, comedy is not my favorite of the movie genres, so I actually struggled a little bit to come up with 5 comedies or whatever that I like, but Back to the Future I think
a good
fits
list
into that, and Back to the Future always makes me laugh every time I watch it, so it fits. And again, I guess I really do keep gravitating towards Spielberg's. That's another. It was
this is Zemeckis.
It was Zemeckis, but wasn't it Spielberg produced?
Yes.
I was going to say Amblin was involved.
You're definitely going toward Universal Pictures. How dare you? No, I'm kidding.
Hey,
I'm kidding.
Back to the Future is better than Simpsons. I said
it. Yeah, I mean, I still wish I could have read the Back to the Future ride. I never got to.
I actually never did either. I've written it in spirit.
Let's make our own.
Exactly.
So what would you do here with Back to the Future? And everyone listening has had to have seen this movie. If not, have a nice day.
And that's where if this needs to be interactive, I'm not sure if we should go Enchantment Under the Sea Dance with Johnny Be Good.
That would be fun.
Or and I guess my thoughts there with it being Wizard of Oz and kind of a musical sequence with stuff. You could do that versus I feel like it would be difficult to stage something with the DeLorean and with Doc outside in that big of a sequence, especially knowing you have 2 vehicles.
Yeah, but you could have it to where the witch, where the witch was, or what, something like that. The interaction with the witch, he turns to you, and you guys are quote unquote Marty, or whoever's at the lead is Marty, and he's maybe like plugging up for the courthouse and the clock tower and all that, and
ooh, that could be good.
And so like there's lightning going on, the storm's about to come, and he's, "Oh, Marty, you gotta do the thing," and I don't remember the whole quote. I'm really bad with quotes, horrible with quotes. But just that, going in there and the lightning storm.
It would definitely either be Clock Tower,
Hill Valley. You're running into Hill Valley, and there he is with the tower, and we've got this amount of time to do this,
and then right when the lightning strikes, the vehicles go not 88,
but you move,
unless you're backed up. Then that would be super awkward if you have the lightning strike and you're supposed to go and you don't move because people haven't boarded on dock.
It would be just as bad as the Munchkins finishing the song and you're still there and you're like,
just
how's everyone doing today? I'm dancing. What about you?
But at least the Munchkins vamp enough that you get that.
Yeah, the lightning's. I don't know, we could be like, back to the drawing board. Let's play a game.
Oh, look, it worked, dog. Bye. In silence as you leave.
I got it fixed.
Just for that, now I want to do that. And then you can have Huey. Well, you can then have Huey Lewis back in time vamping a little bit if you don't move. So you can cover it. It'll be.
There's. No, I want it to be silent and
silent. Well, it'll only vamp for so long
and awkward. They could have just kept the music going until we hit a censor, but no. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show and talking. You got to be in the last one too. No other guest has been on.
Yeah, I hijacked.
On a couple. Oh, you didn't hide. Yeah, you got here early. There's nothing wrong with that. But no, it was great having you, and we're gonna talk next episode about some films that inspired you beyond favorites, scores, directors, and my new questions that have been going. I have to make sure that your answers stayed the same since I literally just asked them to you before recording this.
Yeah, and I definitely have not thought about those whatsoever during this discussion.
Well, you got time to look it over. Thanks for listening to the Great Movie Radio Show, everyone. You can find us on Spotify, Anchor, YouTube. Have a good one. We'll see you next time. The Great Movie Radio Show is recorded in Orlando, Florida. You can visit our website at www.thegmrshow.com. Art direction and logo design provided by Mr. Bayless. Voiceover and intro work provided by Dave Fesky and Joe Erickson. You can find our podcast on multiple platforms such as Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and many more. Music provided by the YouTube Audio Library. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Just search The Great Movie Radio Show or The GMR Show. This has been The Great Movie Radio Show. We hope you enjoy your day, and we'll see you at the movies, the stuff dreams are made of. Goodbye, everyone.
You have been listening to a GMR radio production.